Mandefro. I am Advocacy Director for an organization called the Amhara Association of America. This is a voluntary role, of course. I'm a PhD candidate at a university in Montreal, Canada called Concordia University. I'm studying social and cultural analysis program, but recently following up events in Ethiopia, I've been very active in an organization that organized this event. And I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Yirga, who is a senior lecturer at Curtin University in Australia. He's a human rights researcher. So what we have planned for this afternoon is, there has been a lot of talk, unfortunately, about atrocities in Ethiopia lately, and we want to contextualize those atrocities in the broader social and political dynamics, and then we will go into what's happening to Amhara across Ethiopia, but particularly in two regions, the main regions that are probably account for 70% of the population in Ethiopia. We're having technical issues, I don't know what's happening, but bear with us as we try to figure out that. But let me first introduce TRIPLE, for short, Amhara Association of America. This is a diaspora organization established in 2016, and at that period in Ethiopia there was a resistance movement against the regime, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, and we saw young people coming out in the street to protest, and we need to amplify their voice, their questions in the US and elsewhere, and that's how we ended up starting a diaspora organization called Amhara Association of America. Since then, we've been very vocal in the US, lobbying with a lobbying firm in DC, but also working with human rights organizations, primarily supplying them information and contact us to investigate atrocities against Amharas by themselves. And then we have also been recently engaged in an effort to document the atrocities ourselves by building a network of sources and experts on the ground in Ethiopia. This is the first time we, as an organization, interfaced with the African human rights architecture, I would say, at least in the form of this commission. But we recently filed a case on the same topic in partnership with the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria. We are hoping that this meeting, this interactions here and the contacts and the networking we will do here will enable us to do more work within the African human rights system. I think there are a number of opportunities that we have not been utilizing effectively so far. So we'll hopefully connect with each and every one of you after the meeting to explore what opportunities are there in terms of working together. With that, I will now give the mic to my colleague Yirga, who will talk about the broader context to situate the atrocities against Amharas, and then I will come back to talk about some of the atrocities we documented and what has been our reporting so far, and what could be done by civil society organizations like yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hona. I live in Australia. I am a senior lecturer there at the Center for Human Rights Education. I did something wrong. Okay. And Center for Human Rights Education is a postgraduate center. We have masters and PhD students researching on human rights issues in Africa and elsewhere in the world. I get involved in this because through my research, I realized that there is unseen genocide happening in Ethiopia. And that genocide is a genocide against the Amhara people. So I want to kind of give you not a legal analysis, but a historical analysis, a narrative that tries to explain why the genocide against the Amhara people in Ethiopia appears to be complicated, is often viewed through the lens of politics rather than human rights. So my focus will be to kind of show to you the humans that are being killed, that have been displaced behind this complicated narrative about politics in Ethiopia. Most of you, because we are here meeting in Tanzania, we understand the meaning of Ujamaa, which is very much linked to the philosophy of Julius Nyerere, where he was advocating for a family-based African system of rights and governance or politics. Ujamaa, I think, is important because what he thought should be the owners of politics were people, families. What's happening in Ethiopia is a violence against families. It is not a violence against rebel groups. It is not a war between combatants. It is a killing of mothers, a killing of children, a violence against vulnerable families. There are many reports done in relation to this. For instance, there's Amnesty report, which shows how families have been murdered, burned alive, and how pregnant women's belly was cut open with this hate-filled ideology that even unborn children should not be born and live as Amharas. And the Amhara Association of America, which is built by young people who are passionate about human life, in a country where powerless people are totally ignored, they were able to document 3,308 killings just in 1 year, 1,252 injuries, 1,009 cases of rape, 111 arbitrary arrests, abduction, and all of these violences, which my colleague Hone will explain later. So my approach here is not to tell you about the violence, because you are human rights researchers, you will know about that. But in my background, after studying law and doing my master's in human rights, I moved into the idea of transforming human rights from a criminal justice orientation to a social epistemic justice orientation, which includes people's lived experiences and identities. And that's why through my research I'm able to talk to you about the history behind this violence. Most of you may have heard about Ethiopia. Ethiopia's big history, which extends back to the origin of humanity, if you like, or extends back to the times of the Greece or the Egyptians, where many were writing about Ethiopians. That long history of a country ruled by kings ended in 1974. So Ethiopia's history can be divided into two: the period before 1974 and the period after 1974. The period after 1974 was a time when people believed in the divine authority of kings. So there was no ethnic races, there was no ethnic-based politics, there is no election, there was no democracy. People, on the basis of their faith, followed a system based on Ethiopian kings. But after 1974, we have governments created by modern educated elites. We had a 1974 revolution that killed all these ancient traditional leaders of Ethiopia and started a new chapter in the history of the country. What we're going to talk about today is what happened in these last 50 years and how the Amhara people are portrayed as the enemies of the revolution or the change in Ethiopia. You might have heard the genocide in Rwanda, how the Tutsis were portrayed as people associated with the past dead Belgian colonialism or people who might have come from other places. And that story was used to justify their murder after many, many, many generations. So in Ethiopia too, after 1974, for the last 50 years, the regimes that came to power have created this narrative about the Amhara people, which I'm going to explain to you right now. As I said before, I want to say a few words.